It's so good to be with you again. I look forward to our weekly visits. I hope you do too. And I hope you don't miss too many of them. But there's one thing about this kind of communication. It's there to see later if you don't get it when it first comes along. And for that, I guess, we should be grateful. I had a passing conversation sometime during the past week. It's December. And in December, there's a natural drop-off into what we like to think of as winter temperature. I greeted somebody as I crossed campus by saying, "It's a brisk morning." And the other person answered, "It's cold." Those were two adjectives to describe the kind of weather we had and to describe the temperature. Now, temperature itself is a measurable thing. It's not a philosophical answer, really. Temperature is so many degrees, Fahrenheit or centigrade or what have you. But we were using adjectives to describe the temperature. And our two adjectives were, well, somewhat different. I said it was brisk. The other person said it was cold. We choose our words, as a result of who we are. And who we are is pretty much a product of our experiences. For me, having grown up in the upper Midwest, Iowa, and then pastoring for a number of years in Wisconsin, including way up in Green Bay, Wisconsin at that, and then some other years in what I almost thought was the temperate climates of Cleveland, Ohio, though the Clevelanders didn't think that. When I come here in wonderful Kentucky, I think that the weather is, at worst, brisk. You see, when people tell me it's cold, my answer almost always is, it's not cold unless it takes your breath away. When you step out the open door into the outside and you catch your breath, then it's cold. Up till that point, it's brisk. But my definition, you see, comes from where I've lived, where I've experienced life. And that's the way it is with all our definitions. That's why God's grace has to touch us at such different levels and in such different ways, because we are such different human beings. And we are different human beings partly indeed because of what I just said about the weather, where we've lived, where our experience has been. And when it comes to more profound matters than the weather, it involves other things too, like the temperament that has become part of our very being, something we got from our ancestors. They say it's in our genetic code now, perhaps. But one way or another, we have something we've inherited from the past. We have something going through our system that makes us see things differently from another person in the same room. Thus, we can leave a worship service on a Sunday morning, and one of us think that it was just the most inspiring event we could have known, while another says simply, it was okay. It isn't a measure, really, of the service itself, but of the person who attends it and what that person brings to it. This is not a criticism, really, not at all. We are who we are, and we have to cope with whom we are. Now, when it comes to the weather, we can cope with that in a rather simple way. We can put on one more layer of clothing. We can wrap a muffler around our neck and put something on our heads. So that's easier to bring under control. When it comes to more substantive matters, spiritual matters, matters of the mind and the soul, well, I just wish there were another layer of clothing I could put on sometimes. If I could only find a hat that would keep my soul in better shape under certain circumstances, I'd have better adjectives to describe where I am and what life is all about. That's part of what the gospel is about. When, in the language of the Apostle Paul, we're encouraged to clothe ourselves with certain qualities, because in that clothing we are equipped to deal with the varieties of weather, too hot, too cold, too ordinary. We have something of the clothing of faith that prepares us for all of the differences that occur to us in life. That's what I think as I step out in the morning like this, when, if I had been raised in Texas or Florida, I might say it's cold. But where I came from, this is just brisk. You get your adjective from who you are. And some of who you are, you can't help. But what we can do is to gain the answers in our Lord to equip us for whatever the climate, physically, emotionally, intellectually, or spiritually, whatever that climate may be. That's what's on my mind today, and I thank you for the chance to say it to you. God bless.